and we're back to painting flowers. We're gonna do a wildflower bouquet today, and I think it's going to be maybe a little messy because I'm busting out the masking fluid. I am not very good with masking fluid. This is definitely a more vulnerable video I'm showing you because I have tried masking fluid for years and it is not my favorite. But in the effort of it growing and expanding, I really wanted to try it for at least one lesson in this challenge. So let's get to it. It's day 7 of my 10-day Painting the Wilderness challenge, and today, my friend, we are embarking on a journey that I am a little nervous about. We're using masking fluid today, and masking fluid and I do not typically get along very well, so we're just gonna have to see how this goes. Before we get going, as a reminder, during this challenge, I am giving away one copy of my book every day. If you want a chance to win a copy and enter that giveaway, go ahead and watch to the end of this video and I will tell you how. So I'm going to get started by prepping my watercolor notebook, taping all sides of it with extra long ends so that I can wrap the tape around the notebook to keep the paper more taut. And then once again, keeping the paper even more taut with some binder clips on those sides. So with this wildflower scene, I'm going to use masking fluid. Masking fluid is a concoction of chemicals. I am not exactly sure what's in it, probably some kind of silicone or plastic. A concoction of chemicals that basically allows you to keep the white of your paper white while you're painting on top of it. So I'm using this masking fluid to basically paint or draw the outline of this little stalk of flowers that I want to be in the foreground of my painting. Basically, this scene is like if you were to use portrait mode on, if you're out camping and you see a really beautiful, delicate flower. And so you zoom in on that flower. And so the flower is what you can see in focus and everything else is blurry. That's kind of the effect that we're going for here. So with my masking fluid, I did a very, very loose outline of this flower just with the stem and some blobs for flowers and a couple leaves. And then I used a paintbrush that I do not care about at all, not one whit, to fill in the rest of the flowers with the masking fluid. That's because masking fluid will pretty much immediately ruin any paintbrush you use. So that was a really cheap student grade paintbrush that I got free from some kit a while ago. And so it's the brush that I use for masking fluid because I do not care about it at all. Okay, so I put on the masking fluid and then I waited for it to dry. Disclaimer, I did not use my dryer for this. I think I waited about 2 hours for it to dry all the way before I went ahead and did this layer. I don't think you have to wait that long necessarily, but that's how long I waited. So then I got my whole paper wet with clean water because if we want the background to be blurry, that means we need to use the wet on wet technique, right? If we want to create blurry things, with watercolor, we need the wet on wet technique. So we start with clean water, and then I'm trying to create kind of just like a blurry mountain range in the background. So I'm using some Payne's Gray, some Hooker's Green. I really like the combination of Payne's Gray and Hooker's Green in general. And then along the bottom, it's going to be this field. So there's going to be a field of flowers with a mountain range and maybe some trees. Everything except this, what's in the masking fluid, is going to be relatively blurry. So similar to what we practiced in day 4, for the field of flowers, I want it to be kind of luminous. And so I put down some Hooker's Green, and then I'm using my brush with clean water to kind of maintain some of the white space while still blending in some of that green. Now I've created kind of a darker green by mixing Payne's Gray with Hooker's Green, and honestly, I don't really have any particular rhyme or reason here. I'm just kind of using my brush to paint a mountain by putting in some colors here, some colors there, blending in the top of the mountain in some places. I let this dry a little bit. It's still wet. I let it dry for maybe like a few minutes just so it wasn't soaking wet, so that now I can paint in some kind of darker areas that maybe would look like some trees. So, in this area particularly, I was trying to use my small brush while my paper was still kind of wet in order to make lines for trees. It didn't work very well, so I put that down and started moving on something else. Now, while the paper is still wet, I am pushing some clean water into the mountain so that the clean water can kind of bloom into the top of that mountain and maybe create some kind of mist or foggy effect. That's kind of what I was going for by pushing the clean water into the mountain. And now I'm just adding some darker colors here, some darker colors there, because I want to create contrast. We've talked about that before, especially when we did the night sky scene on day one. If you want to create contrast and kind of like that magical, capture that magical feeling of, your breath catching, usually you need contrast. So a contrast between dark and light. And that's really what I'm trying to do more than capture any particular shape. So I decided to go back to the trees to see if I could get any of them to kind of look actually like trees but still be blended. So that's the kind of the trick, especially when you're trying to create blurry things that still hold their shape. In order for them to be blurry, the paper has to be wet. But if the paper is wet, it is hard for them to hold their shape, right? So that's why you kind of have to wait until the paper is still damp, but not all the way wet. And I think I captured that with those trees on the right hand side. They kind of look like blurry trees. I'm going to go for it. So I started to paint some darker paint on that other side, but the paper was a little bit drier than I anticipated. So I am just kind of blending it in because once again, I'm trying to get that portrait mode effect, right? I don't want any dried paint lines as much as possible. And so I'm taking some clean water and just kind of blending in the rest of these colors that I'm adding here. And this is a part where honestly I'm just kind of having fun experimenting, knowing that I want that middle space where the mountain is to be dark, and knowing that I want the bottom space where the field is to be relatively light and colorful. So yeah, I'm just kind of playing with paint at this point. Now I'm going to add in some textures in that field so it looks like there might be some blurry grass. Then I'm going to add some flowers. I created a violet color by mixing Prussian blue, I believe, with maybe some Quin Rose. Um, I haven't gotten there yet, actually. While it's still wet, I'm using just a small brush to add some blurry, but hopefully still visible blades of grass coming up from the bottom. And then here's my violet that I made. And I'm just going to add it right into the green spaces. Hopefully, I still maybe have maintained some of those white spaces, and that's really where it would be preferable to put those purple flowers. But once again, as a reminder, I really, really want the paper still to be wet. If you've been painting and your paper has dried, you can always re-wet your paper. I have done that several times. I will check to make sure to see if any parts of my paper have dried, and then I'll use a little bit of water just to re-wet it. And that's where this piece especially is just going to be a big mess, and that's exactly actually what we want, right? So after I added those violet flowers, I added a little bit, some dots of lemon yellow deep, just for the center of the flowers and to add a little bit of contrast. Then I let it all dry. And I tried to take off the masking fluid with an eraser. Usually I like to erase kind of the masking fluid to help pick it up, and it tore my paper. So I kind of just like ripped off part of that paper but left part of it there. I'm just going to paint right on top of it. I am undeterred. I'm going to finish this piece, but really I hate masking fluid. Masking fluid is not going to do this on every paper. I think it's possible that it was the paper that might have been the culprit, although it also might have been while I let the masking fluid dry initially naturally, I used a dryer to dry the background layer, and so there's a decent chance that using the dryer kind of messed with the masking fluid and made it not so easy to take off. Either way, I've been using masking fluid for years and I really hate it. But I wanted to use it to practice and to show you how to use it in case you didn't know. So even though parts of the paper got ripped up, it's still okay. I can still use it. And I took some of that violet color, I added a tiny bit of white gouache to make it lighter. And I'm really just filling in those little blobs of flowers. I'm leaving behind some white space. Especially, I'm leaving behind white space along the edges of the flowers. That's because I want the flowers to have this kind of like silver lining effect, really. So it looks like they're glowing. Maybe there's light kind of glowing behind the flowers. That's kind of the effect I was going for. I'm not sure if it really worked, but so I'm filling in the flowers, maybe adding in some loose petals. These are not any particular flower, they're just purple flowers. And then I'm adding in some green. This looks like I added a little bit of yellow ochre to Hooker's green to make it like a sap green kind of. To paint the stems and then to paint some of the leaves. And then I added some yellow to the center of the flowers for some contrast. Yellow and violet are complementary colors, so they don't mix together very well, but if you put them in the same composition, they can brighten a piece. They can kind of add a nice, bold contrast to that piece. And then now I am going back in with some even darker, I think maybe that's even blue. I'm going back in with some blue and just adding more contrast onto the flowers to make them look decent. And I wasn't super happy with my results, so I did what I love to do when I'm not really happy with my result, and instead I want to really lean into the whimsical fantasy aspect, and I am splattering. So I splattered some violet, I splattered some blue, and then I splattered some white gouache, and the white gouache splatters against the mountainside actually make it look really cool too. So, all in all, masking fluid is not my favorite. Florals are also not my favorite. I'm not great at florals, but this scene turned out pretty cool. I think it's a technique that I might try again in the future. Maybe just, different masking fluid brands or different paper. But all in all, I am very proud of myself for putting myself out there and trying a technique that I wasn't super familiar with and coming up with a result that really I'm proud of because the experience taught me a lot, and I think it's always a good thing to be brave and put yourself out there. So, what I loved about this experience, I loved the white outline of the flowers. I also actually really loved the trees, the blurry trees on the right hand side, and of course, I loved the splatters. I always love splatters. What did I learn? What did I learn? I learned that I hate masking fluid. Maybe I should let it dry naturally. Um, and I learned that, you don't have to love a piece in order to learn from it. So, thank you for watching this with me. If you want to win a copy of my book, leave a comment here, any comment, and I will see you next time.